On Wednesday night, Caitlin Clark will see the Golden State Valkyries for the third and final time in the 2026 regular season. Indiana won the first meeting. Golden State won the second. The deciding game comes down to whether Clark can break a defense Natalie Nakase has spent 2 meetings refining around her. The difference between those first 2 games was plain. Indiana scored 90 points in its May 22nd victory. Clark finished with 22 points and 9 assists, and she made 4 three-pointers. 6 days later, Golden State held her to 16 points, 6 assists, and 3 made field goals in a 90-88 Valkyries win. Clark still shaped the game. Golden State never removed her from Indiana's offense, but Nakase made every possession take more time, more movement, and more effort before the Fever reached the action they wanted. That distinction matters because the Valkyries didn't defend Clark with one designated stopper. They used a sequence of defenders. Each one consumed part of her energy and disrupted a different part of Indiana's offense. Veronica Burton opened the May 28th game as Clark's primary defender. Gabby Williams absorbed more of the assignment as the night continued. Other Golden State guards entered the rotation whenever Nakase needed fresh pressure. After the game, Nakase described the principle behind that plan. She wanted a defender who could stay in front of Clark, maintain high hands, and challenge her without fouling. The instructions sounded ordinary. The execution wasn't. Clark was being picked up across the length of the floor. Stephanie White later said Golden State guarded her for 94 feet. The purpose wasn't to force a turnover on every possession. That pressure reduced the amount of usable time Indiana had once it crossed half court. When Clark needed 3 extra seconds to bring the ball into the offense, the Fever entered their first action with less room to recover from a switch, trap, or deflection. And that's when Nakase's depth became part of the scheme. Burton wasn't expected to chase Clark for 40 minutes, while also organizing Golden State's offense. Williams could take the assignment without lowering the physical pressure. Another guard could replace Williams, then Burton could return without spending every previous possession fighting through screens. Clark never received the usual relief that comes when the first defender goes to the bench. Golden State also changed the picture after she crossed half court. The Valkyries switched across several positions, placed hands in passing lanes, and trapped selected ball screens. Their length narrowed the direct route between Clark and her first read. Clark had already identified those qualities before the May 28th game. She called Golden State one of the league's best defensive teams and noted that the Valkyries could use almost every guard on their roster against her. Sometimes, she said, they sent 2 defenders. The trap itself was only the start. When 2 defenders move toward Clark, Indiana should gain an advantage somewhere else. One Fever player has been left with space. The challenge is finding that player before Golden State's backline rotates. Nakase built the defense to shorten that window. The first defender pressures the ball. The second removes Clark's immediate path around the screen. A third extends into the passing lane. The remaining players prepare to switch or recover as soon as the ball leaves Clark's hands. Indiana can escape the trap and still find that the expected advantage has disappeared. Golden State's 11 blocked shots on May 28th showed how much ground its defenders covered. At the time, that was the highest single-game total by a WNBA team that season. Burton recorded a career-best 5 blocks herself while scoring 25 points. Several blocks came from help positions instead of conventional rim protection. A defender arrived after Indiana had already created what looked like a clean attempt. Clark faced the same problem on the perimeter. A passing lane looked available when she began her motion, then closed before the ball arrived. A driving angle seemed open until a rotating defender stepped across it. That's the value of high hands in Nakase's system. The defender doesn't need to steal the ball to alter the possession. A raised hand can obscure Clark's view of the roller. It can push a pass several inches wider. It can delay the release long enough for a teammate to recover. Against most guards, those fractions of a second may not decide the entire action. Against Clark, they're often the difference between an immediate assist and a possession that has to begin again. The May 28th game remained tied or within 1 possession through much of the closing stretch. There were 9 lead changes and 14 ties. Indiana still had opportunities to win. Golden State's pressure mattered most when every decision became compressed. Clark committed turnovers with 1 minute and 32 seconds remaining, then again with 1 minute and 6 seconds left. She later missed a 3-pointer with 40 seconds on the clock. The Valkyries protected a 2-point lead through 2 late defensive stops and won 90-88. Those moments weren't separate from the previous 38 minutes. Golden State had made Clark work to initiate offense from the opening possessions. By the final 2 minutes, Indiana was attacking the same passing lanes under greater time pressure. Wednesday's game will test whether the Fever can prevent that sequence from forming. Their best answer begins before Golden State sets its defense. Clark said as much before the second meeting. She wanted Indiana to play in transition and create cross matches because the Valkyries become harder to attack once their half-court organization is established. A cross match occurs when a defender has to guard someone outside the intended assignment while moving from offense to defense. Burton may not be positioned to pick up Clark. A larger defender may have to stop the ball. Williams may be occupied near the rim. For a few seconds, Nakase's planned sequence is unavailable. Clark can use that disorder without taking the shot herself. An early advance pass can move the ball beyond the first wave of pressure. A drag screen can force a slower defender into space before Golden State is ready to switch. Aliyah Boston can establish position before the help defense identifies its responsibilities. Indiana's pace can't depend only on live ball turnovers. The Fever also need to run after rebounds and made baskets. That requires fast decisions from every player on the floor. The first outlet has to arrive quickly. Clark needs teammates filling both sidelines. Boston, or another screener, has to reach the middle before Golden State's guards settle into the passing lanes. If Indiana walks the ball forward, Burton and Williams can select their assignments. The Valkyries can communicate the switch. The trap can arrive from the expected angle. At that point, Clark is solving Nakase's preferred problem. The first meeting showed what Indiana can create when the offense reaches a cleaner rhythm. Golden State led 44-37 at halftime on May 22nd, but Indiana accelerated after the break. The Fever made 6 of 9 three-point attempts in the second half and moved ahead during a 90-82 victory. Clark's 22 points drew attention, but her 9 assists mattered just as much. Golden State had to account for her shooting range without abandoning Boston near the basket. Boston finished with 20 points and 16 rebounds. That combination strains a switching defense. If the defender guarding Boston switches onto Clark, Indiana can pull a larger player into space. When Golden State traps, Boston becomes an outlet in the middle. Once she receives the ball there, the defense must choose between protecting the rim and remaining attached to Indiana's shooters. The Fever didn't control every part of that first game. They committed 18 turnovers, and Golden State was playing on the second night of a back-to-back. Wednesday won't reproduce those conditions. Still, the first result showed that Indiana can score against Nakase's defense when Clark and Boston connect before the rotations settle. Golden State changed the Boston matchup in the second meeting. Nakase assigned Kia Stokes to study Boston's preferred moves and stay in front of her. Stokes anticipated several actions instead of reacting after Boston had established position. Nakase later credited the preparation that allowed Stokes to contest and block shots without surrendering the angle Boston wanted. That adjustment reveals how Golden State prepares for Clark. The Valkyries aren't watching only the player with the ball. They study where the ball is supposed to go next. Taking away Clark's first pass helps. Anticipating Boston's move after receiving that pass is even more valuable. By the time Indiana reaches its second advantage, Golden State may already have a defender waiting. Clark can counter by changing the order of the possession. Instead of calling for the same high screen, she can enter the ball early and relocate. Boston can operate as a passer instead of an immediate scorer. A Fever wing can screen for Clark away from the ball, forcing Burton and Williams to communicate without seeing the entire floor. Indiana can also make the second side of the offense more important. Golden State wants the first action to consume time. If Clark spends the possession dribbling against pressure, the defense has controlled the clock even when it doesn't force a mistake. The ball has to move faster than the defenders. A quick pass out of the trap, followed by one more pass, can reach the side Golden State has temporarily exposed. The decisive play may come from the player receiving Clark's pass, not from Clark herself. That puts responsibility on the rest of Indiana's lineup. The Fever can't watch Clark fight through pressure and wait for her to rescue the possession. The player behind the trap has to become visible. The weak side shooter must adjust with the rotation. The screener needs to create a legal angle, then move into open space. Clark's passing can punish 2 defenders only when 4 teammates preserve the spacing around her. Nakase will be comfortable testing that discipline for an entire game. Her approach doesn't require Golden State to dominate every possession. The Valkyries only need to stop Indiana from playing comfortably for long stretches. A trap can produce an open shot and still serve its purpose if it makes the Fever hesitate the next time. That accumulation is central to the matchup. Burton's full-court pressure alters the entry. Williams changes the physical profile of the defender. A switch moves size in front of Clark. A trap forces the ball away. High hands narrow the passing angle. Stokes prepares for the action that follows. No single element is the solution. The sequence is the solution. The May 28th result also showed the offensive burden Golden State can place on Indiana. Burton's 25 points prevented the Fever from treating her as a defensive specialist. Williams added 19 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists. When those two create offense, Clark and Indiana's other guards don't receive quiet possessions at the defensive end. That matters when Golden State pressures the ball after every change of possession. Indiana can weaken the cycle by making Burton and Williams defend through movement. If Burton is chasing Clark away from the ball, navigating multiple screens, and recovering after switches, her defensive assignment begins to affect her offense. When Williams has to absorb contact from screeners, Golden State may get fewer fresh possessions from her late in the game. Indiana's objective is to make the defenders participate in as much action as Clark does. The physical condition of the game will matter too. Clark played 24 minutes in Las Vegas on July 12th as Indiana continued managing her workload after a back injury. Wednesday's game arrives 3 days later. Golden State has a direct interest in testing her movement and endurance from the opening possession. The Valkyries don't need reckless contact to do that. Sustained legal pressure is enough. Burton can make Clark change direction in the backcourt. Williams can meet her after a substitution. Golden State's screen coverage can force her to retreat and begin again. Each action adds distance to Clark's night. Indiana's response has to reduce unnecessary movement. The Fever can bring the ball forward through another handler. Clark can begin possessions away from the ball. Early passes can prevent Golden State from aiming every defender at the same point of attack. Those choices wouldn't remove Clark from the offense. They could help her enter it from a more dangerous position. Catching the ball on the move is different from dribbling into a set trap. Receiving it after the defense has shifted is different from facing Burton squarely at half court. Attacking a cross-match is different from challenging Nakase's chosen defender. Wednesday's deciding question is more precise than whether Clark scores 20 or 30 points. It's whether Indiana can make Golden State defend the entire floor before Nakase establishes the matchup she wants. When the Fever create pace, the floor opens. Clark can find Boston earlier, attack a retreating defender, or move the ball before the trap forms. When the Valkyries control the entry, the game contracts. Burton and Williams can rotate through the assignment. Golden State can switch the first action, pressure the passing lanes, and force Indiana to play against a shrinking clock. The season series has already produced both versions. On May 22nd, Indiana reached 90 points. Clark recorded 22 points and 9 assists, while Boston controlled the interior with 20 points and 16 rebounds. On May 28th, Golden State held Clark to 3 for 12 shooting, blocked 11 shots, and survived the final 2 minutes with the stops it needed. The deciding meeting places those two results in the same building. Clark knows the pressure that's coming. Nakase knows Indiana will try to run before it arrives. Neither side needs a new identity. Each one needs to impose the version of this matchup that has already worked once. The third and final regular season meeting tips at 8 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday at Gainbridge Fieldhouse.